All right, Sarah Eaton on TikTok. Let's see what she has to say about nice guys finishing last.
If somebody said to me, would you rather be with like a short king who's 5'5" and treats you amazing and loves you? Or would you be with a toxic man who's 6'3"? At this point in my life, I would be like, how toxic?
I've been saying this for a long time, right? I keep saying over and over again, girls know exactly what they're doing. So the fact that there's all these guys that are constantly making excuses for them doesn't make any sense, right? Girls know exactly what they're doing at all times, guys, okay? They're trying to get it all, okay? So anytime they say or make some excuse about why they're behaving a certain way, understand that that is just a facade, okay? They are very calculated. They know what they're doing.
How toxic are we talking?
This is exactly why the saying nice guys finish last even exists, and it shows that women's standards go out the window based off a man's attractiveness. So basically, if you're hot and you're 6'3", it doesn't matter how red your flags are. She's going to go for you over the nice guy 10 out of 10 times so she can avoid accountability later when she's crying on the internet about where did all the good guys go.
Well, she's absolutely speaking facts. Everything she said was absolutely true. This is something we're seeing all the time, and it's all part of this feminine world order, right? Girls are trying to control the narrative, and they do that by obscuring the truth. Okay, the truth is very obvious. Girls that say they want that nice guy, whatever, pretty much always lying, right? If they could have their world, they would have it so they can get the bad guy for children and the nice guy to take care of him without any responsibility. That's the ideal world they want to live in. I'll throw in an extra caveat, of course. When I say ideal world, that's the ideal realistic world. And make no mistake, a lot of girls pull this off. The perfect scenario is for the woman to have a perfect man that can do both things. He could be the nice guy and the bad guy at the same time. That doesn't exist. We know this. It's impossible to be both guys at the same time. So the best realistic option is to get one for each. Get one guy for each purpose.
Well, you're not attracted to them. This is also a good way to weed out a lot of these unhealed women because no unhealed woman looks at a man and tries to decipher how toxic he is.
This is where I disagree with her. Notice, by the way, there is always some sort of excuse given. Okay, there's always an excuse given for someone that's non idealistic. Okay, I hate to say this, but everybody is non idealistic. Everybody. Okay, there's this pervasive idea that if you act idealistically, that you are correct, that you are doing the right thing. In this case, she's using the term unhealed. So, by that logic, 99% of women are unhealed until they get to what, 30 years old? Is that how it works? I think this is another excuse again. This is one of my core issues with all of this because there's no truth in any of it. Just admit that you're sexually attracted to the bad guy. It has nothing to do with being unhealed or whatever it may be. You have time on the clock, so why not take the risk? Just admit it though. Why does it always have to be that someone is unhealed until they get to a certain age where now they're forced to make a decision out of necessity and now they are healed and ready? I'm so tired of this narrative, okay? It's not unhealed. It is simply human nature. And let's call it what it is, please. Let's stop making excuses for women and their mate selection. Whether they chose it subconsciously or consciously or a mixture, they have to take responsibility for their mate choice, okay? They did it. They knew what they were doing on some level. Can we stop making excuses for women choosing specific guys? Let's just learn to understand why instead of constantly making excuses around it, okay? It has nothing to do with being unhealed, at least not in most cases.
In fact, good women run the other way. And
not to take away from what she's saying, of course, the first half there, she's saying all facts, right? But good women don't do this. I mean, this is also a bit ironic too. I'd be willing to bet that if you asked her, she's probably one of those good women. Just want to point that out there.
What is so freaking crazy about this is that women can drag men that are 5'5", but when a man doesn't want a woman because she's too fat or is not aesthetically pleasing, now he's misogynistic.
I mean, I 100% agree with her on that. That's 100%. The standards are not consistent. And we all know this, right? It's all just part of that obscurity, gray area, subjective, chaotic reality that our feminine world order is trying to create.
The same reason that all of these women that claim to hate men and have all of these high standards end up pregnant and single mothers. It's because those said standards that are bullshit and based off a man's attractiveness go straight out the window as soon as he presents himself with enough chaos for her to stay in her highs and lows of her addiction to being in chaos because she's unhealed.
Once again, I hate this excuse of unhealed. By that metric, what? Everybody's unhealed then, right? The vast majority of women that I've ever met crave chaos, okay? Pick your spot on the spectrum. Some obviously need a lot more than others, but all need it to some degree. Does that mean that all of them are unhealed? Or maybe this is just something that's in their nature, okay? It's in a woman's nature to desire chaos. Pick your form of it. Okay, I've seen it all across the board. I've seen women that get five pets in the house to have the chaos. I've seen women that decide to step out of a boring marriage to get the chaos. I've seen women that are kleptomaniacs. This is how they get their fill of chaos. I can go on and on and on for different ways that women get their fix of chaos in their lives, right? But my point is this. Is it just because they're unhealed, or is it an innate need? I'd be willing to argue it's innate need. That's what I'd be willing to argue. Now, of course, we always have to make an excuse, right? Because there's always the path to retribution, of course, right? There has to be always this caveat of everybody has a chance to fix themselves. From a political perspective, this sounds really good. And I think it helps save us for some of the unflattering realities of how we are as people. But I don't think this is objectively the truth. I think all people need some degree of chaos in their lives. I think we just call it unhealed when it's past a certain mark. So where is that magical line in the sand where we're saying this is unhealed territory and this is healed territory? Why is none of this ever innate? Why is none of this ever built in to the human condition? I don't want to rant about it too much. I hate excuses constantly being thrown out for this. Okay, I don't like the excuses. Call it what it is. It's better for everybody long term, even though it sounds unflattering up front. Okay, women have a need for chaos. If you approach your relationships with the logic that women need chaos to be satisfied, your success in that relationship long term will skyrocket. Okay, it's not just about order, it's about order and chaos and knowing when to deliver both. Okay, this is what your job is as a guy in terms of the long term relationship. If your goal is to maintain long term relationships with women. Okay.
And what's crazy about all of this is she will repeat this cycle over and over and over again. And all it's going to do is solidify her thought process that all men are trash. And then she's going to get on the internet and cry about how all men are trash, even though it's her who's projecting all of that insecurity and all of that unhealedness onto the men.
So this is another one of those situations where I also disagree slightly. Like, I think she's on the right track here, but I hate giving them the pass once again. Okay. When are we going to learn to call out arrogance for what it is? Okay. A person's entitled to go out there and seek what they think they deserve until they fail. If they do fail, inevitably, we can't just keep letting them off with these excuses of, oh, you were unhealed, you didn't know any better. The whole time they're manipulating themselves and everyone around for the sake of that fantasy. I don't feel bad for them because I know deep down that they knew what they were doing. They're using the excuse after the fact to try to mitigate the damage of it, but they knew what they were doing.
Yes, these women absolutely deserve to get dragged based off their appearance, because how are you going to drag a man based off of his height and something he can't even control?
Well, as you know, right, women control the sexual process. They have since the beginning of time. They're the ones that are responsible for the next generation. So it is what it is. I guess there has to be some value in that chaos. Now, I'm not going to sit here and defend it because everybody wants to look at the world so idealistically all the time. Everything is always looked through this very narrow idealistic view, whereas if you don't fit into this box, you're automatically defective. I'm not going to automatically say that you're defective. And obviously there are cases where the way you're brought up influences your success in the future in terms of relationships. I'm not going to deny that reality. But I also can't deny the fact that some women, even though they're raised in a perfectly good household, still seek that chaos anyways. There are more of these cases than the other. At least the latter cases have an excuse. Oh, my dad wasn't present. My mom wasn't present. My mom had 20 boyfriends when I was growing up and didn't pay attention to me. I feel like a lot of times these can be very convenient excuses. Now, I'm not going to say that there's no trauma attached to this. So I'm not going to open that can of worms necessarily. I am saying that these excuses are so convenient now that it's just so easy to pull that excuse and justify all your behavior away and then just go do the same thing right away after. At that point, it's no different than horoscope, right? Someone says something about, oh, I'm this sign, automatically they just wave a wand and all their behavior is essentially justified. Why is it impossible that some people are just hoes? Like they're just born that way. Is that not a possibility? They're just born that way. They're not really designed to be in a long-term relationship. You know, there's this, we're trying to force this mold onto everybody constantly. And yeah, it's idealistic, sure, but is there a possibility that it's just not meant for everybody the moment they're born? Maybe their mother, father, grandparents, great grandparents, maybe they were all hoes, right? It didn't just come from nowhere. So sometimes with these types of things, I think her message is positive. I think it's a good one. She's positive in the idea that everyone can seek help, retribution, change their ways. I get that. I get that. But I also do think that on some level, some people are just doing what they do best until they fail, and then they switch the narrative because they can't do what they used to do. I do believe this is way more prominent, and I think we need to be careful when we give people these free excuses when they're not getting their desired outcome and seem to not understand what they're doing, but yet they're doing the same thing over and over again. If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you want to see more of my private content, don't forget to check the link in the description below.